Hey guys, what's up? It's me, MC Matador, and today I'm bringing you my part 1 of the top 25 amusement parks I've visited. Just for a bit of context, I want to say, sorry, there we go. I'm officially home for Thanksgiving break, so this explains why I'm a little less familiar with this software. This is the same computer I was using the summer before I went to university. Every video that's been uploaded since I've been at university, since mid-August, has been uploaded through my newer laptop. This is a 10-year-old Apple Beater desktop. And I do want to say that this whole series also stemmed from two core realizations. I've been consistently across the 200 plus subscriber threshold. So I'm quite happy with that I've been able to maintain those numbers even after the inconsistent schedule, the gap between uploads, and the major hiatus I took back in the spring while I scrambled to put my new brand together. But mostly, this whole list is stemming from a realization that the most recent park I visited during my tri-state tour, which I'm not going to say it, because you'll probably find it in the record. Some people know what it is. Was the 25th park I've ever visited. A quarter way to 100, and 25 is my favorite number. And hitting 25 parks is a lot harder than hitting 25 coasters. Like some hardcore enthusiasts with hundreds of coasters, like triple the value I have, haven't even visited 100 parks. Unless you're like really like park hopping or credit whoring. There's a lot of parks I'll never get to because of, well, they're not worth my time. Visiting 25 for me with 183 credits is still a massive achievement, with more coming down the line. I do want to say there also is an exemption, because technically I should be at 26, but it turns if I were going off of just everything. But I visited Mount Olympus back in 2012. This park is notorious for being my exemption, because back when I was in 2012, I was 11 years old, and yeah, my list of coasters, my record keeping didn't exist. And I also visited mainly for the water parks, say Poseidon's Rage. That wave pool's been on TV several times. So I wasn't there for the coasters, and I haven't been back since 2012. When I go back in the future, I'm going to be riding the coasters and doing the water park, and then it'll count. Just as a little word of exception. But even if that didn't count, or even if it did count, I'd still have 25 coasters. And I'd probably just put 6 in this episode. But no, I'm just going to do 25, from worst to best. Mount Olympus probably would get the worst based on my state back in 2012, but that's not an issue. I'm going to be giving info about each park to a kind of an anecdote of my personal experience, the general atmosphere, overall thoughts, things to do, and overall just I'm going to kind of just talk about things. I'm also going to list a location and a coaster count. Since this is mainly a roller coaster channel, there will be a general trend where parks with fewer roller coasters tend to be not as great, but there are exceptions to that rule, don't get me wrong. Roller coasters don't mean everything. I'm not one of those people. I value atmosphere, entertainment, and environment, and alternative things to do, as well as good food. Getting that out of the way, you can kind of see how my thought process will go on through this episode and further beyond. So let's get on with number 25, Nickelodeon Universe at Mall of America, Bloomington, Minnesota, with 3 coasters that are on my list. Fairly Odd Coaster, a Gerstlauer 424 spinner, SpongeBob SquarePants Rock Bottom Plunge, a Gerstlauer Eurofighter, and not Fairly Odd Coaster, I said that, Pepsi Orange Streak, which is I think it's Schwarzkopf or Chance? Can't remember exactly. I think it's, or is it Zier? I think it's Zier, actually. It's Zier, which is a Zier family coaster that goes over and around the park and through the log flume and all that fun stuff. I want to say that this park was extremely difficult to get into. For reference, I'm just going to tell a little bit of a story here. I was driving up on a Friday afternoon from my place in Chicago straight to Minnesota, with only a few stops for like lunch and gas and stuff. And at the time, we were 16 and 14 respectively, me and my little brother. My parents were going to leave us at Mall of America to go explore, and they're going to pick us up later because they trust us. And we had just driven 6 hours, traffic sucked, we wanted to figure out the hotel, and we were getting kind of antsy. But it turns out Mall of America will strictly turn away people under the age of 18 without a legal adult with them. And they don't even have people at the doors doing that. You have to go into like one of the stores or like the lobby or something. We didn't find out until our parents had already driven past. So that was a pretty inconvenient thing to do. Calling my parents saying, hey, they're not letting us in, and we had to postpone the trip. They had to come back, pick us up, and we had to postpone the trip here till for a double session of a park in Minnesota that we'll cover later, plus Nickelodeon Universe. There was also a second problem that would have prevented us from ever doing the park in the first place, even if we had gotten into the mall alone as teenagers. They take card only. I'm not kidding when I say that. They only take card. They have kiosks where you can get your wristbands, which can have either a set amount of credits per ride, which rides can be like 4, 6, or 8 credits per ride or something like that, and a credit's like $1.25 or something. I don't know. Or you can get an unlimited wristband for $40, which I think that I did get the unlimited. I figured that riding everything I wanted to ride there was more worth it than having to worry about counting credits and walking the park. We just settled for the unlimited, which, I mean, it would have come out basically the same had I done the same exact amount of rides that I did here. The park was small, expensive, food was not cheap. It was kind of gimmicky and didn't really feel like it belonged. It didn't have many notable rides, and the roller coasters were all average at best. Kind of going through an anecdote of what I did ride, I rode Fairly Odd Coaster first, which actually is my favorite coaster at that park. If you've seen my Countdown Calamity series, you'll know. Then I went to do a couple flat rides. I did that TMNT, not Shellraiser, Shell Shock or something, which is one of those Gerstlauer rides where you can move your arms up and down with the wings of the plane and do like flips or hang yourself upside down, or it depends on your momentum as well. It's a really fun ride and pretty challenging and stimulating as well. Probably one of my favorite underrated flat rides, because I'm pretty sure the one in Nickelodeon Universe is I believe the only installation in the States, at least at this point. I also went to do SpongeBob SquarePants Rock Bottom Plunge, which I thought was not all that great, despite being indoors. Very short, very headbangy. Decided to go do, I wanted to finish up my credits with Pepsi Orange Streak, which I did that. It was kind of fun, but also it's a family coaster. Seeing the park from above was fantastic. Then I picked up a few more unique flat rides that you don't see very much of in the United States, particularly Brain Surge, the Chance Unicoaster, which is one where you are in a circular capsule with another person, and one person gets control of the lever in the center of the two, and you can push and pull the lever to rotate your seat forward and backwards as the ride moves along a mixed elevation circular track. So you can hang yourself upside down, you can be belly down, you can be belly up, you can just be sitting around cruising and really wondering why you spent your money. And the best part is that you can torture the person that doesn't have control of the lever, especially if they're squeamish. My brother wasn't so, but I still got a stern punch in the arm after I was through with him, which was fun, but we still love each other, I think. And I also was able to do Avatar: The Last Airbender or whatever, which is their intimate half pipe. I don't consider those coasters because I believe they're too small to be coasters, but some people do. I'm going to stick with a purist strategy. There are some things I didn't end up doing. I really wish I could have done Jimmy Neutron's Atomic Collider, or Particle Collider, but it's gone now. I was interested. I didn't know it was so rare, so it's gone now, and I have to go to Oktoberfest in order to be able to ride one of those again. I believe it's Hexentons, which is dance. And that was pretty much it. There's also a lot of name brand character interactions, which will be a theme throughout this episode. Spoiler alert. They are very strange about those, because from my knowledge, they only do them during Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, holidays, and special events, which rotate throughout the year, and you have to follow their social media to get the full loop, or visit during Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Their relevant series rotate, but you can expect to see things from mainly, say, SpongeBob, or Paw Patrol, or TMNT. I know I saw all 3 of those while I was there, or, well, saw from the distance, didn't meet them, even though I grew up on a lot of SpongeBob. I don't know, it was also that I already was very busy. I decided to also eat the Hard Rock Cafe that was there, because my grandfather back home is a Hard Rock pin collector. Overall, it was fun, but definitely did not leave a lasting mark. There were a lot of issues getting in, and that soured my overall opinion on the park, and it's honestly also has essentially no revisit value. There's no season pass option. It's in the middle of a freaking mall. It's also very far away, and if I were to revisit anything, I'd revisit the other major theme park in Minnesota that we'll get to in a future episode. Moving on, we have number 24, Disney's Epcot, which this is the only park on here that will have 0 coasters. But it is famous, notable, and also is also part of a larger resort, also known as Disney World Resort in Orlando, Florida. This thing gets the edge over Nickelodeon Universe just because it's very invigorating. The rides here are enough. Being able to do the space launch simulation to, I think it's like what, the moon or Mars, or out of orbit and a moon or whatever. Then they have the whole futuristic Tomorrowland or like Better Tomorrow theme, and then you got you at the back you got the Pavilion of the World, so the World Pavilion in the back, which is you could just walk around in a circle and take in all of the different cultures that are represented there. There's so many of them. Of course, you have Grand Old America in the very back, which is where I spent a lot of my time looking through the Museum of Indigenous Peoples and doing the American Adventure type screen show. I mean, there was also a pretty good barbecue place that was there. Still did like Germany, Japan, China, to Canada. I spent some time in France too, and just did Test Track about 5 times because the single rider line for Test Track was awesome. Like, it was the most effective single rider line I think I've ever seen that is properly advertised. Not Goliath, because that one's never advertised, but it's super exploitable. Um, yeah, but Epcot has a very like the theming, scenery is top notch. It's Disney levels of theming, Disney levels of experience. But the whole park, like I was spending so many hours sitting, walking, wandering, not really doing the things I would normally do in a theme park, which is kind of pushing my limits a little bit. I'm more of a thrill seeker, which is something you probably should know about me considering I've been on 183 coasters across 25 parks, mainly those that are coaster enthusiast type theme parks or amusement parks. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, of course, I'm known as a coaster enthusiast, and this exactly wasn't my cup of tea, but I still made the best I could out of it. I will say they should really get rid of that Nemo ride, though. That was a disgrace. Like 5 minute wait, and the best part about it wasn't even the ride; it was the aquarium at the end, where you can go see manatees and various types of fish. The manatees are pretty cool, though. One of them's an amputee. Anywho, I'm gonna move on and talk about Canobie Lake. Yeah, Canobie Lake is in Salem, New Hampshire. 3 coasters. The closest park in proximity to Boston, Massachusetts, which is where I have family that lives over there. I saw them in 2016, which I went to Six Flags New England and also did some of the other things like the MIT Museum of Science and whatnot. And then 2018, I did Six Flags New England again, which you'll see later on, and Canobie Lake, which is the park that Boston or like Eastern Massachusetts kids go to a field trips for a lot of time. And this park is actually quite interesting. Very hole in the wall, probably the smallest, like most non-corporate family-owned park I've ever visited. Definitely felt like you went back in time more or less to it, at the very least a decade ago, probably even older because a lot of the rides are antique. They have a lot of older rides there. Um, I also want to say that it does draw quite a crowd as well. A lot of things there reach 20, 30-minute waits, and it was quite interesting seeing that go through. Just sheesh, yeah, that was quite interesting. Especially they have 3 coasters there, and I've done a couple of the other flats as well. They have Yankee Cannonball, a classic Ace wooden coaster. They have Untamed, a Gerstlauer Eurofighter, and they have Canopy Corkscrew, an old Aero Corkscrew type of ride. Untamed and Canopy Corkscrew are pretty bad, as you saw. Like they were in my first 2 or 3 parts of my Calamity series, but I quite enjoyed Yankee Cannonball. Too bad that's also the most popular ride in the park. There were a lot of things I didn't get to see in the park because I didn't. I was also spending a lot of time with my cousin, or a second cousin I was with as well, a family member. And they also do have one of the strangest things I've ever seen in the park. They have a completely free, as long as you bring your quarters, pinball pavilion. I'm not kidding. They have an actually functioning, antique, playable collection of vintage pinball machines from decades of past, with various IP themes that were popular back when pinball was a lot more popular than it is now. Pinball, it's always been a game that I liked but never wanted to play competitively, but it was always cool just to get a few quarters and then just stick them in the pinball machine and be able to kill some time doing that. I thought it was a really nice touch, and you don't get that's something I've never heard of in a theme park before until I went to Canopy. It was a pinball pavilion. I would have had to go to the local GameWorks in order to play uh, some pinball, but no, I can just get a much bigger and much cheaper collection at Canobie Lake. And as for I already talked about the coasters. I also want to talk about one of their very unique flat rides there they have Turkish Twist, a rotor ride, the one where you're stuck standing up vertically in a cylinder below the ground. Then the walls start rotating, sticking you to the walls with the centripetal force, and the floor drops up from underneath you. I am a heavier dude, so I did slide a little bit back to the floor. It is covered, so you don't have to worry about any sort of amputation or gory stuff if you're heavier, because it's completely safe. I'm surprised it's also running, because rotors have been on the decline for probably 20 years now. It's a ride from probably, the 70s or 80s, and it's still running today as Turkish Twist at Canobie Lake, and running quite good as well. You're pulling 3 Gs for a couple minutes at a time there. It's a super intense ride, and I'd recommend anyone who has an interest in that type of history thing. They also have one of the most popular rides there, especially when I went, was the Boston Tea Party, their Shoot the Chutes ride. It's their designated water ride, as well as being able to do things on the lake, like paddle boating on Lake Canobie, or Canobie Lake, or what it's like actually called that. They also have a water park expansion that was under construction, with like a lazy river, a kiddie play fort, and a tube slide. Or a couple tube slides that were under construction when I went, but they were not open when I went. I don't know what the status in those being open is. If it's been delayed to if it was open in 2019, if it got delayed to 2020, I don't know. I haven't checked up on the park status yet, and it's one that doesn't get a lot of radio comm because it's so small, so hole in the wall. But overall, I really like this thing. It's charming. It's very cute. It definitely is quite affordable as well. If I remember correctly, via Screamscape, they just introduced a season pass program, like either late last year, or for the 2019 season. The local sponsors, like certain retailers or even the McDonald's that are in the nearby area, give out coupons that give you, say, $5-10 off admission. And this place does have some revisitability, but just doesn't stack up with the big boys. I'm sorry to say that, Canobie Lake, but there's not much reason other than especially having been there once already, to go to some other park in the area, especially a Six Flags park anywhere else in the United States, since I have a season pass, versus Canobie Lake. It's a good park, and I recommend people visit it, but it's not one that's worth visiting more than twice or 3 times, unless you're either A, a really big pinball fan, B, a local, or C, a season pass holder that just happens to be from far away. Or D, if you're visiting with a family member that's in the area and want to go again because you can. But for the most part, it doesn't just stack up with the big boys. Moving on now to another actual big boy that fails to live up to expectations yet again. It's another Disney park, Magic Kingdom. The tale is old as time, and the park that is probably one of the most overrated and most television-ridden parks that I've probably ever been to. I even missed a good chunk of the morning. Why does I say chance? Good chunk of the morning, because from rope drop to about 11 o'clock or noon, it was pissing rain. I did get to see the rainy day parade from the Main Street USA candy shop, because I took refuge in there while the rain was dropping and pouring everywhere. But even with the rain, it still managed to be stupid crowded on a Wednesday, with lines for attractions exceeding more than 90 minutes. And I was still finding and scrambling to find things to do, trying to avoid crowds. It isn't meant for me, I guess, or coaster enthusiasts as a whole. I was mostly there because I was there for other types of things. It was my last day at Disney, so it might have been a little less magical and a little than, say, Hollywood Studios, which I went to my first day, or, say, Animal Kingdom, which you'll see later on. I mean, my day there was pretty much filled with wandering, exploring, ambiance, and trying to avoid people. And the coasters, Space Mountain, which I rode twice, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, which I rode once, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, or Seven Dwarfs Mine Train for short, which I rode once, are all in my bottom 50% of coasters, which is unfortunate, but it's kind of expected. And then you have name brand flats, which probably are about the most name brand flats you can possibly get. Splash Mountain, Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, and they can even somehow make kiddie rides, or family rides, absolutely famous. Your Magic Carpets, which can pull a half-hour wait, or Dumbo, which can pull probably 20-30 half-hour wait. The Mad Tea Party, which, why would you ride the Mad Tea Party when you can go back, when I live in Illinois, and we get a little thing called Terror Twister 2, A Turn for the Worst. which I did several times when I was at Great America during Fright Fest, but did not do the Mad Tea Party once. They have all sorts of stuff. But they also have your forgettable things like the Monsters Inc. laughing energy collector and the Carousel of Progress and the Tom Sawyer's Island. Like things that I barely have ever heard of but are there for some reason. That Monsters Inc. one was actually like a legitimate laughing stock. I didn't actually go in it, I was just laughing at the fact that it existed. Because I can't imagine that being very good, especially as an ice-hearted 19-year-old man. But I also want to say that there are quite a few things to do there outside of things. I really enjoyed one of their restaurants in Main Street, USA, a quick service Casey's, which is your basic, it's themed to turn of the century baseball, and has some pretty dang good corn dogs and hot dogs, and I can't remember if I got a burger there. I'm pretty sure I just went corn dogs and then hot dog or something. Or, I don't know. I can't remember what I got there, but there's some good stuff at Casey's, and it's probably the cheapest restaurant in the entire park. I went there twice, because for my travel agency, I actually got $25 to spend on food, and just food, through like per park, based off a gift card, and I was able to make the most out of it with by just going to Casey's, and I could just use the rest in a soda or something later on. And then you have plenty of well-established character meet and greets. I had time for Stitch, which is in the former Stitch's Great Escape attraction queue line. I was one of the last ones to get in because I was like, oh, the door's open, and the door almost immediately closed once I got in there, which was pretty cool. Stitch is also very short. Being 6'2", it was kind of strange. And, of course, we have the Crystal Palace, which you have Winnie the Pooh characters and the character breakfast or character lunch, and then you have the whole thoughtful spot near the Winnie the Pooh ride, which replaced, I forget what it was. I forget what classic dark ride it replaced the Winnie the Pooh one. Was it like, not Tinkerbell, or not Peter Pan? Whatever it replaced. I'm not good at Disney history, and I'm not nostalgic without Disney. But I also saw Winnie the Pooh and Tigger, which was quite fun. I was able to walk around the park and see some of the live shows, some of the parades they do. Got to walk past several of the other character meet and greet spots, and they're pretty chronic. Like, they are operating from not necessarily open to close, like a few hours after open to a few hours after close, or before close. And it's impressive. And then you have the Magic Kingdom fireworks show at the end, which, other than being very loud, is quite nice. And you were like, seriously, I also got to have an experiment with the speed of sound, because those fireworks were probably a mile or so into the sky, and it takes a couple seconds after seeing them explode and hearing them explode. Science. And moving on to the final park, we have Universal Studios Hollywood in Los Angeles, California, or I think it's actually Universal Park, with a coaster count of 2. This park has a lot of good things going for it. The climate is beautiful because of LA's naturally shielded climate, being your 72 degrees average, beautiful, hot and sunny type of thing. The live entertainment, the ambiance, the absolutely massive selection of character interactions that appeals to anyone who has ever had a childhood. The scenery. It's unfortunate that the rides here are dull, repetitive, screen rides that they don't ever stop adding. I'm not kidding. I was pretty much done with screen rides by the end of them. Let me count off my fingers how many I did for sure. It was a Despicable Me ride because I had some Minions fans in the group. It was a Simpsons ride because that one, I don't know, that apparently was must do. There's a Transformers ride, and then that one I barely even remember, other than there being like a really good slow-mo scene or explosion. And then they have the Shrek ride, which is now gone for something else. That's at least 4 screen rides. 4. In one park. That's absurd. And they're all pretty much the exact same thing. Some you're moving around in a stationary box, some you actually have a box that moves around, sometimes you're just in a chair. Sometimes they're just motion simulators. I don't know. It's pretty crazy. I don't understand the amount of screen rides they have in the slightest. I can't comprehend it. And they got another one coming with the Secret Life of Pets ride. I will say that this park definitely has a lot more redeeming factors than Epcot or Magic Kingdom, and can compete. It definitely has a lot more positives and memorable things that I did there compared to Canobie Lake and Nickelodeon Universe. Especially since they have a very wide character selection. I was able to see several of my childhood character things, like Scooby-Doo and Kung Fu Panda characters and Madagascar characters, Shrek characters, because when I was growing up, DreamWorks was king. And that rightfully showed because the DreamWorks Pavilion had not even opened up a month prior, which they have just a whole bunch of DreamWorks things. And then they have several extras. If you want Beetlejuice, you can get Beetlejuice. You want Universal Monsters are there. They have SpongeBob for some reason. That's just a random acquisition. Harry Potter. They have Trolls from the other DreamWorks section. And not only is there also definite schedule from when you can see them, but they also just appear randomly for no reason. Like, they go above and beyond with their character things that even best Disney with the characters. Like, the quality's just about there. The quantity is way above there. With a wide variety of selections, the manpower, as well as just the amount of massive selections of IPs that appear on a consistent basis. Oh, by the way, if you want me to rip my fangs and claws into Disney World, metaphorically of course, about their very distinct list of flaws as an avid Disney fan and theme park goer, kind of like a what's wrong with Disney World type of thing, I can totally do that because I've been planning something like that for a while. I just never knew whether or not to pull the trigger on that. Back to Universal Studios Hollywood. It was just a lot of screen rides. It was the Harry Potter ride. Oh, yeah, that too. That was a fantastic screenish ride, though. I actually said 2 coasters, even though I would normally count Revenge of the Mummy as the only coaster here. I rode Flight of the Hippogriff because one of my younger cousins that I went with was is a huge Potterhead. I remember also sneaking off to the bathroom to actually use the bathroom and then to meet Scooby-Doo because my grandfather is not very cool about that stuff. I don't know. He's a strange man. Having to take several flights of stairs to go down to the lower lot and get absolutely drenched on Jurassic Park, now Jurassic World. Revenge of the Mummy is a pretty good family coaster, and I would love to ride that one again. Oh, you can also meet Transformers in the lower lot as well. You can meet Blue, I think is a recent thing, from Jurassic World. You have the Revenge of the Mummy Stillwalkers, like Anubis, and there's just so much cool stuff there. And the studio tour is also something excellent. I didn't do it, but I would love to try and do it one day. Just Universal Studios, despite not having the ride star power, has a lot of other things going for it. It's also very expensive, so that's unfortunate. But for the most part, I really did enjoy Universal, and I found it better. I'm sure Universal Studios Orlando, either park, would be able to knock off the best Disney park, and I would really love to get to Universal Studios Orlando someday. But yeah, that about does it. That's it for my top 25 coasters top 25 amusement parks I've ever visited. Part 1, 25 through 21. If you guys have enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscription. And as always,